So before we get started, a quick formal introduction on my name is Mohammed Shoaib. I'm a cybersecurity certified from EC Council itself. I had an experience of more than 5+ years for training students in this domain. Okay. I've trained at least more than 800 plus students in this course and some other advanced courses as well related to Splunk or web application pen testing. So my specialization is web application pen testing, finding vulnerabilities in websites. Okay. But before that, you need to know the fundamentals of cybersecurity. And for that, you have this course called Certified Ethical Hacking version 12, the latest version running of the course. Every year, the version gets updated and new concepts are added, older ones are removed. Okay. The current updated version is version 12, and we'll be working on what the course is about now. Okay, we'll be talking about that. Okay. So now, before we get into this, there's a common misconception among students that from the name ethical hacking, they assume that hacking and ethical hacking is one and the same. There's no difference at all. So let's clarify those things first. Okay, what is hacking? What is ethical hacking and how they're different from one another? Okay, so firstly, when you talk about hacking, this is the procedure of trying to gain access to information systems. Now, when I say that phrase or say that sentence, gaining access to information systems, it basically means me as a hacker would try to get remote connection to your devices. So whether it be your phones, your laptops, your, again, servers in an organization or a database or cameras, whatever it be, hackers try to get access to these devices without the permission or without the knowledge of the person or the organization owning those systems. Okay. And you might have a question, why do hackers do this? They do it for their own benefit. Okay. So once they get access to these devices, they can steal the data, destroy the data, or sell that data to other people over the dark web or the internet. Okay. And sometimes hackers are so mischievous, they can even do it just for fun. Okay, just to disrupt services and create havoc. They can even do it for that purpose. Okay. So basically, as mentioned, hacking is the process of gaining access to any information system without the permission or without the knowledge of the person owning those systems for the hacker's personal benefit. Okay. Now, if this is such a malicious task, if this is such a criminal activity, why do we have a course called ethical hacking? And how is this getting ethical in the first place? How is this getting legal or allowed in the first place? So to define ethical hacking, on the other hand, this is the procedure of trying to find vulnerabilities. So this term called vulnerability is something that you'll keep coming across multiple times in the upcoming days. So to define it first, vulnerability is a loophole. It's a flaw or a weakness in the security of the information system. Now, these information systems could be anything. Vulnerabilities exist on almost all devices. So your job as an ethical hacker is to find these loopholes, find these weaknesses or vulnerabilities in the information systems. And this is done with the consent and with the knowledge of the organization or the person owning those systems. So you work hand in hand with the organization. You follow all the rules and regulations or policies of the organization, and you find vulnerabilities in their systems. And once the vulnerability is found, you report it back to the company. You explain what the vulnerability is, what problems it can cause, okay? And you provide the solutions as well. And once the solution is provided, once the security patch is updated, your system does not have that vulnerability anymore. And if there's no vulnerabilities, there's no chance of a hacker causing any further cyber threat or any harm. So hackers utilize these vulnerabilities itself, these weaknesses or these loopholes itself to attack your systems. And in ethical hacking, we find those loopholes, we report it, and we remediate it. We basically patch it up so that we're protecting the system from these so-called cyber criminals or these hackers. Okay. Is that clear? Any questions or doubts up to this point? Kiran, Nitin, Rohit?
No,
Yeah, Nitin, you're saying something?
no doubts.
Okay, cool. Now, depending on these two definitions, guys, we can categorize the types of hackers as well. So, for example, there's three broad categories now. If you notice, there's something called as white hat hackers, there's something called as gray hat hackers, and then there's something called as black hat hackers. Your black hat hackers first are basically people who perform hacking for their own benefit or for fun without asking for consent. And these people can also be commonly termed as cyber criminals. On the other end of the spectrum, we have white hat hackers, someone who abides by the laws and policies of the company, They work for securing the organization's infrastructure. Okay. These are ethical hackers who are working for securing the infrastructure of organizations from hackers. And in between, there's a third category called gray hat hackers as well. Someone who doesn't ask for permission like a black hat hacker, but once he finds a vulnerability, he reports it back like a white hat hacker. But there's a minor catch, there's a minor condition. He won't report it for free, obviously. He reports it in return for a bounty. A bounty is like a financial reward that he expects in return for disclosing that vulnerability. So thereby, he works both offensively and defensively at various times, like a white hat hacker as well as a black hat hacker. Hence the name gray hat hacker, a mixture of both. Now, no matter what hacker you take here, these are professional individuals who perform hacking or ethical hacking in a certain procedure. And that procedure is called as cyber kill chain. And our entire course is going to be where we work on the cyber kill chain and understand what are the steps taken by hackers to perform attacks or ethical hackers to defend these systems. Okay. So to read out the definition, if you notice, this is the procedure that hackers follow in order to perform a successful cyber attack. And the same knowledge of this procedure also allows cybersecurity professionals to understand these attacks, to detect these attacks at an early stage, and to prevent them as well at every level of the organization. Okay. And this cyber kill chain consists of 5 important steps. So there's something called as information gathering, there's something called as scanning, there's gaining access, maintaining access, and reporting or clearing traces. So these are the 5 steps involved in this hacking cycle. And our entire course is going to revolve around the same practical steps or practical hands-on implementations of the various operations in these 5 steps itself. Okay. Any questions or doubts up to this point before we get into what these 5 steps are, where I'll explain briefly about each of these now? Any questions, any doubts?
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, Kiran, I can hear you.
Sir, what if we find a vulnerability in any website and
Okay.
after we didn't report that to that those members, what will happen, sir?
Someone else would find it and they would exploit it. So if you report it, the company at least has a chance to apply the patch to it and again prevents further cyber threats. Okay. If you're not reporting, the company wouldn't know about it. If the company doesn't know, and luckily if any other hacker also finds it, he might take an advantage out of it. So you might not have attacked or taken advantage out of it. You might have just found the vulnerability. You might not have misused it, but other hackers might not be so decent. Okay. So they might misuse, they might steal information from those servers. Okay. And they might cause much more difficulties to the organization. So it's better to report it. And if you report it again, if the company is good enough, they're going to pay you a good amount. If not, they'll tell you, they'll lie to you that we have already found this vulnerability and we are patching it up. So we cannot pay you anything. So that also happens in some cases. Okay. So
Sir,
yeah.
what if without reporting, what if they found us and they proceed with law or something? What will happen, sir?
That's why it's always important to take permission first. So just in case if you're finding vulnerabilities, it's always important to hide your tracks. Okay. So use a VPN so that your original IP is not given out. Okay. And then find the vulnerability. And if you report it, then you can again get some benefit out of it. But if you're finding vulnerabilities without the permission of the company, they can definitely take legal action against you. If you don't want that to happen, always stay anonymous. Use VPNs.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
Or at least you need to have an existing record of a bug bounty hunter. So if you have some websites registered, I mean, your account registered in some bug bounty platforms like Bugcrowd or Integrity or some places like this, you can at least defend yourself, telling that you are a bug bounty hunter and it's your job to find vulnerabilities and report. So I was just about to report it to you, but you again found me back. So that is one more way. Okay. So in the upcoming sessions, I myself will be showing you some vulnerabilities on some live websites itself. Okay. So again, I'll be doing it without their permission, obviously. But again, at least I have a bug bounty account, some websites and bug bounty platform websites. So again, I can use that in my defense at least. Okay. Is that clear, Kiran?
Yes, sir. Clear, sir.
Right. Perfect. Moving on. So let's talk about some more, I mean, a bit more in depth on these 5 tasks. Okay. So firstly, when you talk about information gathering, this is also commonly known as reconnaissance or footprinting. Okay. And the main objective of this step is to gather as much information or as much data as possible about your target organization. And an important point to note here is all of this information is obtained passively. What I mean by passively is you do not contact the organization in any way. You don't make any direct connection with them. All the data is obtained from third-party sources, from the internet itself, from other websites. But the main question that arises here is what kind of information are you looking for? And this is the information as follows. Now, I might not be able to explain each of these informations today, guys. That would be a time-taking process. But again, to list it out, you get the IP addresses or the group of IPs of the organization called network blocks. Then you need the who's records telling you who's hosting the website for the company, DNS records, information in their DNS servers, domains and subdomains of the organization, operating system information, what OS are they using, Microsoft operating systems or Linux operating systems, employee details, contact numbers of the employees, email addresses of the employees, and usernames and passwords, if any of them have been leaked online in data breaches. Okay, so we'll be practically learning all the measures to be taken to get this information from various sources of the internet. Believe it or not, all of this information is readily available. All you need to know is what those websites are from where you can get this data. If I have to show you a practical example for this, let's say I wanted the DNS records of any company. Okay, so I can just simply go to my browser, and in my browser now I can search for a website called DNS Dumpster. And if I search for this website and click on the first link here, this is a website which gives you the records of any DNS records of any company all around the world. So if I search for, let's say, Wipro, a very popular Indian MNC, if I search for wipro.com here, and if I hit enter, these are the DNS records of Wipro. Okay. Right now, Wipro has 4 DNS servers. These are the exact IPs of the servers right now, hosted from Amazon Web Services. Okay. And these are the host names. Okay. So these IPs are very crucial for a hacker or an ethical hacker, because on these IPs itself, you start finding vulnerabilities. You start scanning for vulnerabilities on them. Okay. Then it has MX record. So this is one more DNS record which links the mail server of Wipro. So Wipro is using outlook.com, and this is the host name of the server and the exact IP address for it. Okay. Scroll down much further. These are the domains and subdomains of Wipro and their exact IPs. So these IP address informations are very crucial for a hacker or an ethical hacker. Okay. This DNS record links every domain or every subdomain of the organization with their corresponding IP addresses. And these IPs are utilized in the upcoming phases for any organization that you perform the pen testing for. So this is just an example to give you one piece of information. Similarly, for other pieces of information, you have other websites as well. Okay. And in the upcoming sessions, we'll practically learn what those websites are. Okay. So again, a pretty easy phase, a very simple step, but very crucial as well. The more information you obtain here, more chances are there of finding vulnerabilities, or more attack vectors you find to find the attacks on the target organization. Okay. So do not take it easy. It's an important step. More information gathering, the more data you gather, more chances of success as well. Okay. Any questions or doubts up to this point? Kiran, Nitin, Rohit.
No.
Right.
No, sir.
Moving on. Yeah, Kiran. Okay, perfect. Moving on. So once all of this information has been obtained here, that information now is utilized in the next phase, which is called scanning. This is also commonly known as enumeration. So this phase also involves information gathering itself, but with active methods. So you try to get extra information on the target, but by making active connections. Earlier, we got the information passively without making contact. Here, whatever IPs you have obtained, whatever email addresses you have obtained, whatever domain names you have obtained, on those you launch attacks. Okay, you send certain specialized packets and you try to get some extra data. Okay, and depending on what data you get, you divide scanning in 3 parts. So there's something called as network scanning, port scanning, and vulnerability scanning. Network scanning is where you try to figure out in the target organization how many hosts are active. So how many servers are they using? How many endpoint devices are they using? How many laptops or mobile phones are connected in that network? How many cameras are connected? Are they using any firewalls? If so, what firewall are they using? Are they using any IDS, IPS systems, intrusion detection systems, or intrusion prevention systems? If so, what are those devices? So getting the network topology of the entire organization is called as network scan. Once you know what devices exist, on those devices, you perform port scanning, trying to figure out what ports are open and what services or applications are running on them. Now, here I'm not talking about the physical ports, guys, the USB port or so. I'm talking about the logical ports. Okay, your system, or more importantly, your operating system has logical ports on it. And on these logical ports, you receive and send data. Okay, so there are 65,535 logical ports. So when you talk about port scanning here, you're trying to figure out what logical ports are open and what applications or services are running on them and what data is coming in and going out of your systems. And once you know what ports are open, finally you perform vulnerability scanning. So whatever ports are open and whatever services are running on them, are they capable of running it securely? Or are there any loopholes on those services? Are there any vulnerabilities that you can attack on and try to perform a lot of exploitation? Okay, getting remote connections or accessing sensitive data. Okay, all of those vulnerabilities are tried to be found in these vulnerability scanning phase. So it's a step-by-step procedure. You're finding the devices first. On those devices, you're finding the services running. And on those services, you're checking for vulnerabilities. Okay. So once all of this data has been obtained here, finally, you have something called gaining access, the phase where the real hacking occurs. Okay. So attackers or penetration testers use the vulnerabilities found in the earlier phases and now try to gain access to the system or the application or the entire network itself. Okay. So here we learn how to attack a certain singular system or the entire network or a certain single application as well. Okay. So again, this is one of the largest modules, guys, in the entire course, covers a vast variety of topics. If you will notice, I'm going to briefly explain about each of these now. But before that, any questions, any doubts up to this point? Anyone?
Sir, what if the person use antivirus, sir?
Yeah, that is for
And
specifically preventing malware applications, definitely. But that is not the only vulnerability or only method of attacking, right, Kiran? So again, we have one attack out of all the attacks called malware attacks. So if their antivirus is good enough, it can detect even the latest malwares, well and good. But sometimes if you generate a malware yourself, that malware signature is not available in any antivirus database. So for the first time, your malware executes without any interruptions at all. So we'll also learn that how do you create your own malwares which can actually bypass certain antivirus, but only one time again. After the first time, they will automatically get detected. But even one time is more than sufficient for a hacker, right? So that is one loophole, Kiran. Okay, malware attacks are one sort of an attack, but you have multiple other attacks as well. Okay, and in the gaining access module, we cover all of these different attacks. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. Moving on. So let's talk about the first attack, which is system hacking. So in this attack, we usually learn how do you crack or bypass any Windows operating system password. So let's say a hacker has hacked your computer and he has changed your system's password. Okay, so you're logged out of your system. Now, out of your logged out system, how do you get access to your data again? That's an important point. How do you recover your data back? So for that, we learn how do you bypass the password. So without knowing the password, how do you get access to your internal data? Okay. If bypassing methods are not working, how do you try to crack the password? Okay. How do you check if the password is weak? And how can you crack the password and try to get access to the system back? Okay. So that's what we learn in system hack. How do you crack or bypass any Windows operating system password? Doesn't matter what OS it is, Windows 7 to Windows 11. These methods will work on all operating systems. Okay. Then comes malware attacks, just like you have mentioned, Kiran. Again, we practically learn what malwares are, malicious softwares are. How do you create various sorts of malwares, viruses, worms, trojans, spyware, etc., etc. So how these malwares are created in real time. How do you defend your system from these malwares? And how do you basically detect them if they're already installed on your system without your knowledge as well? Okay. Then comes network penetration testing. How do you perform local network attacks? Okay, so attacks like sniffing attack, man in the middle attack, Wi-Fi password cracking attacks. So all these attacks allow hackers to capture your data in your network. So whatever usernames or passwords you're sending, these can be captured in plain text if your protocols are not secure. Okay. So if you're using unencrypted protocols like HTTP, FTP, Telnet, etc., these tools available in network pen testing like sniffers, like Wireshark, etc., can capture your data in plain text. They can read your usernames and passwords. Okay. Similarly, there are other attacks also called denial of service attacks where hackers can shut down remote servers. So they send huge amounts of traffic to a server, but the server is unable to handle that traffic, and they try to crash the server, okay, so that it is inaccessible for other users. Okay, so there's a website like Flipkart.com. What a hacker would do is he would have zombies, 1,000 systems, attack systems with Trojans, and through those 1,000 systems, he launches an attack. Huge amounts of traffic is sent to the server, and the server is unable to identify that and rectify that in a short span of time. The server gets shut down. Okay, and all the customers would log out of the server. So that is called denial of service. So you're denying the service of that web application to all the clients. Okay, DOS attacks. Okay. Then comes social engineering, where we learn how do hackers create fake websites. So these are also commonly known as phishing attacks, where hackers create fake replica login pages, whether it be your Facebook page or your bank login website or your company's login web page. How do hackers create exact replicas of those? And how do they try to steal credentials, your usernames and passwords from those fake pages? So we'll practically learn how do you distinguish or how do you verify which is a safe one or which is a fake one. Okay, we'll learn how to find the differences between that as well. Then comes website pen testing or web application pen testing, where we learn what are the vulnerabilities to check for on the back end of a web server, what are the misconfigurations or loopholes to check on a web server, and how do you check for vulnerabilities on the front end as well. So there's SQL injection, cross-site scripting, token authentication, file upload vulnerability. So we practically learn how do you check for these vulnerabilities in websites. Okay. Through these vulnerabilities, hackers can get remote connections to servers. They can log into others' accounts without their passwords, etc., etc. If I show you an example for this now, for example, we go for SQL injection. So if I go to my browser, I can just search for some login pages here. So let me just search for some login.php or ASP pages. And once I get some pages here, as such, okay, if the page is vulnerable to SQL injection, I can log in with a malicious payload here, single quote or 1 = 1 hyphen hyphen. Now, a very simple attack, okay, but in our upcoming sessions, we learn much more complex payloads and much more complex attacks as well. But if you notice, I've entered a payload here and I've got direct applicant login here, someone called Sabita. So I don't know who this person is, okay, but without their credentials, I automatically got access to their account here in this engineering college website, okay. So again, this is an example of SQL injection. We are trying to log in by injecting malicious SQL payloads. Similarly, you can inject malicious JavaScript code and also get remote connections of clients as well. Okay. So we learn these practical attacks in the upcoming sessions. Okay. And these work on all sorts of websites which have a vulnerability. Doesn't mean it will only work on outdated websites or insecure websites. In the upcoming sessions, I'll also show you how to run this on certain websites which are actually secure HTTPS websites also. Okay. And they could also belong to the government. I found these vulnerabilities in government websites also. Okay. So I'll show those practically in the upcoming sessions. Okay. And then finally, we have evading techniques. So if an organization has security measures like firewalls, intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, how do you check for misconfigurations on them? How do you check for loopholes on them? And if they do have a loophole, how do you bypass and get access to the internal network? How do you bypass these security measures? How do you bypass firewalls and get access to the internal network data? Okay. Then vulnerability assessment. So whatever vulnerabilities are shown to you in the earlier phase from vulnerability scanning, you have to verify those vulnerabilities. So for that, we use a tool called Metasploit framework. Okay. So we work on this application called Metasploit, where I show you if a vulnerability is shown on a system, how do you attack on that vulnerability with this tool called Metasploit? Okay. So again, this is one tool. There's other tools as well, which we'll be working on practically. I'll list them out in a minute. Okay. But this is what we learn in vulnerability assessment. So once a tool tells you, so in a upcoming phase, in the earlier phase when we ran scanning, in scanning, we figured out that the system can show certain vulnerabilities. So from vulnerability scanning, we get to know what services are vulnerable. So once you know that a certain vulnerability exists, you have to attack on that. So for that attacking part, we use the vulnerability assessment phase, okay, where we use Metasploit framework and attack on that vulnerability. Okay. And finally, we have hacking mobile phones, where we learn how to attack an Android phone as well. So if there's an Android phone, doesn't matter what version, if you have an Android phone and if you can send Trojans to it, how do you get remote connection from those Trojans as well? Okay. How do you make them click on a link and get remote connection to that phone? Is what we learn in gaining access as well. Okay. So this is all that we learn in the gaining access module, attacking every single endpoint, as small as a mobile phone, as big as a database or a web application firewall. Okay. attacking every single endpoint: system security, network security, wireless security, web server security, web application security, firewall security, mobile phone security. Every single endpoint is covered here. Okay. And during these modules, we'll be using a lot of very important tools. So there's a tool called Nmap for network scanning and port scanning. There's Tenable Nessus. This is a paid application, very expensive. So if you scroll down and click on buy, this is around $7,000 for 1 year subscription. $7,000 is like in Indian currency, that's close to 4.5 lakhs or something. Oh, 5.8, sorry, my bad. Okay. 5.9 lakhs or close to 6 lakhs. Okay. So we'll practically work on this tool also. Don't worry, you don't have to purchase anything as such. I'll show you practically how to download the trial version for this and run the trial version, which can exactly work like the paid tool, but for a limited number of devices. Okay. So we'll practically work on these tools. Okay. Then we work on a tool like Wireshark, a very popular tool for sniffing, capturing data in a local network. Okay. Then we work on a tool called Burp Suite. This is for web application vulnerabilities. How do you test website vulnerabilities? For that, we use Burp Suite. Okay. And then, as mentioned already, we work on a Metasploit framework, a very popular tool to find an attack on vulnerabilities in any endpoint. So whether it be Windows 7, Windows 10, Windows 11, if the system contains a vulnerability, you can attack with this tool, Metasploit tool. So we'll practically work on that also. Okay. And after this is done, you have two small phases left out: maintaining access and reporting or clearing traces. Maintaining access is where once you've got a remote connection to a system, you have to maintain the connectivity. So if I hack your phone, even if you restart your phone, I should still be connected to you. So how do you learn that? Is what we check in maintaining access. Okay. Hackers try to retain the ownership of the target and perform various post-exploitation tasks. Post-exploitation in the sense, once I've hacked your phone, from your phone now, I'll try to send links to others, other phones or other people, and I try to hack their devices. So I'm pivoting your device here to attack other systems. Okay, so that's called maintaining access. Then finally, you have reporting or clearing traces, where we learn how do ethical hackers generate a report for the organization, elaborating all the loopholes and providing solutions to remove those loopholes. So that's the job of an ethical hacker. Or how does a non-ethical hacker, a black hat hacker, remove the footprints, delete the logs on the system, and erase the evidence so he can be untraceable. So we'll be working on this course in two tracks, guys. First, we learn how the actual attacks are performed in real time. And once you know how these attacks are being performed, then you find the loopholes and you remediate them. So how do you defend from these attacks and remediate so that these cannot be performed in real time? Okay. So again, we learn the attack methods and the defense methods. This is also commonly known as red team testing and blue team testing. Okay. And again, if you're not from a technical background, please do not worry. As mentioned, this course covers everything from the very basics. Okay. So before we dive into all these concepts, we have a few prerequisites to cover. So we talk about networking fundamentals. So if I show you in the next class and tomorrow's class, what we first work on is networking fundamentals. Okay. What are IP addresses? What are private IPs? What are public IPs? What are the different classes of IPs? Okay. So again, how do you convert any binary number to a decimal number? What is the range of IPs? Okay. Public IP, private IP, classes. Okay. So we learn all this practically first. What is a DHCP server? What is a DNS server? How do you assign an IP address? So we learn all these methods first, all the networking fundamentals first. Okay. And then we dive into the other concepts. How do you set up a practical lab environment? How do you install this operating system called Kali Linux, which is very important. So Kali is one of the best operating systems for ethical hacking or penetration testing as well. It's completely open source, which means anyone can download it for free. I'll show you how do you download this, how do you install this, and have a proper lab setup. So this course is completely practical implemented, guys. No theory nonsense. This is just a demo where I to show you what topics we'll be learning. But in the upcoming sessions, we'll be learning everything very hands-on, very practically. Okay. Well, I'll show you all the tools that we work on up in practically in a real environment. Okay. So I'll show you all the simulation attacks as well. Okay. So yeah, this is a brief intro on what the course is about. If you have any questions or so, you can let me know now. Kiran, Nitin, Rohit.
Sure.
Yeah, Kiran.
Sir, actually, while I'm searching in internet, in YouTube, I got to know the term called botnet.
Term called
Botnet, sir, botnet. What
oh
is it?
bot networks. Okay.
Actually, I don't know about it. Uh,
Mhm.
that's why I'm asking.
Botnet is basically, again, as mentioned, when you perform a DDoS attack, let's say, for example, Kiran. So DDoS is where hacker has attacked like hundreds of systems already. So he has sent Trojans to hundreds of systems. Okay. And through those systems, now he launches an attack. So that's a network of bots, basically. Okay. So a network of zombies or a network of bots, which a hacker has control of. And through those, he launches a very synchronized attack. So botnets are used to launch synchronized attacks on any organization. They can be DDoS attacks, they can be exploitation attacks, they can be malware attacks. Okay. So botnet is basically a network of bots, okay, which is basically under hackers' control through Trojan remote connections. That's all. Okay. So we'll be learning that Trojan connection as well. So if you apply it on one system, same can be applied on thousands of systems. It's just that you have to share that malware with all these people. Okay. Most of the times, these botnets are created when you download cracked applications. So from torrent websites, when you download cracked applications, okay. So when like thousands of people are downloading those cracked applications, hacker has connectivity with all those devices, okay. And from those devices internally, you can launch attacks, synchronized attacks, okay. So that's called a botnet.
Sir, is there any way to find those, sir? If the bot is in our system, how we can
Yeah,
find?
yeah, yeah. We definitely learn those methods. So how do you check for malwares? How do you detect them if they're already installed? Okay. How do you remove those if they are installed in your system? There are methods definitely, and we'll be working on those practically as well in the upcoming sessions.
Yes, sir.
Right. Any other questions, guys? Nitin, Rohit. Hello. Yeah, Nitin, your mic is unmuted.
Yeah, no question.
Okay. So yeah, that's that, guys. Nothing further. So this course is for a duration of 35 days, where you have classes from Monday to Friday every day again. And our first class begins tomorrow itself at 8 p.m. I think the institute has dropped the link for that also. So as you can see, there's a demo link. You can copy paste that and keep it aside. And you can join the sessions from tomorrow at 8 p.m. Please do not worry. We are not starting the paid sessions already. For the next entire week, you're gonna have demos, okay, where we learn the fundamentals of networking and the lab setup installation. After that is done, if you're still interested, you can continue with the course. Okay, so we'll be working on that in the next session, guys. Please join the session tomorrow at 8 p.m. using the same link mentioned in the chat box. Okay, so that's that. Nothing further. We can exit the session now. And once you exit, guys, please let me, once you copy the link, please let me know. I can exit the session as well.
Yes, sir. We copied just now.
Perfect, perfect. Sure. So yeah, see you tomorrow at 8 o'clock, guys, at the same time. Sorry, at 8 o'clock. And we'll be working on networking fundamentals. Okay. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Thanks for joining the
Okay,
session today.
thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.